Catherine and Ross Petras. This is Unleash the Knowledge's mini-series. You're on the 12th episode of 15 Minutes with Owen. So excited to have you two here, especially because you guys are a sibling dynamic duo. I don't believe I've really spoken to many authors that have, a great relationship as siblings where they want to take their whole professional work to, out to the world through books. The main book that I've been super attached to of yours is this little mini guide, Always Seems Impossible Until It's Done. This book, it's been amazing. It's been like a nice, refreshing awakening every morning. I just post a quote on my page. And to be completely honest with you, I've never gotten more direct messages about a type of book, a category of books, my recommendations. Everyone's like, what is this book? Send me the link now. So that speaks volumes, and I'm very happy to have you guys on here. Thank you again for joining me.
Well, thanks for having us.
You like the book.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The main thing I love about it is that there's no real structure to it. You might get one day, you might get a taking risks quote one day, and then the next day you might get a, I don't even know, just something completely polar opposite. So like every day as life just goes, you don't wake up the same way. So I really enjoyed that there's so many different categories and angles that you guys have included.
Well, I think it's true. I mean, I think to succeed in life, you have to kind of go at it from different ways and different angles, et cetera. And that was the idea behind the book. But it was also the idea of like constant inspiration. I think we get used to being put down so much. And, we wake up at the news is not great. Yeah. Not much good to feel about. This thing tries to get you going in the right way, I think.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So we'll hop right into this. I'll start my 15-minute timer and we will get some questions going.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So first off, for all those listening that don't exactly know you guys' backgrounds individually, but then also as a duo with being authors, can you just explain a little bit about each of you yourself and the work you've done together?
Okay, well, we're brother and sister, obviously, so we've known each other all our lives, which is good and bad. In some ways, it makes work easier, but sometimes you can kill the other one. I live in Seattle. We're both originally from New Jersey. We also grew up overseas in Cairo, Egypt. So we went from typical suburban life to Cairo, which is a very different thing, then back to Jersey. And now Ross is in Toronto. I lived most of my life in New York City, but now I'm in Seattle. So,
yes,
but soon going to
Spain. Kind of all over the place in many ways, which helps writing books because we've sort of seen a lot of different things and I think get different perspectives into stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was telling Ross beforehand, I'm also from Jersey, so it's great to see another, ambitious individual or group of siblings, doing awesome stuff. But the whole background of your Cairo trip to now being in Toronto and being in Seattle and really just covering, better parts of the whole world is fantastic. And you definitely get a lot of inspiration from travel. I'm a big travel junkie myself. Pre-COVID. I've been
going to say not now.
It's been tough hanging out in Jersey right now, but once things open up, we'll get back out there. So I'm a big nonfiction guy, big personal development, business, marketing, all these types of books. And you guys have taken an interesting style to nonfiction. You've kind of geared more towards a quote book, inspiration book. Also, I haven't read it yet, but I love to see that you have a proper language and pronunciation type of books, which I'm sure I can use that above anyone else. That's probably some awesome stuff, words that people misuse. But what has led you guys to focusing on this type of angle of nonfiction?
Well, I think we both like words. We both love words. We actually started out writing, our first book was a book we wrote a quick romance book a long time ago.
Which we never talk about that, Ross.
We never talk about that.
Never mention that
Yeah.
again.
And then we do a lot of popular history books. We just like the idea of translating stuff that seems sort of hard into something that seems sort of easy, I think.
I think Ross and I both, we say we're polymaths. I think we're both interested in almost everything. I know that sounds sort of ridiculous, but it's true. And I think for us, the quote books fill that need. There's something about collecting pieces of thought by other people and people who've put things that you've thought in your own head, but you couldn't put it in words. And here they have it, and it's brilliant. And that's a pet peeve of ours. I'm going to tangent for a minute. Both Ross and I hate it on the internet. You keep seeing misquotes. I mean, it's the old joke, the old meme about, like, you know, Abraham Lincoln saying, don't believe everything you see on the internet, but it's true. He's right. You know what I mean? So I think for us, the quotes were a way of encapsulating thoughts. The popular history that we're working on now is a way of making history digestible. And the word books are just the love of words. So I think it all coalesces.
Yeah,
It's all just about thinking.
we both really love words. And the one thing is, being siblings, we both like correcting each other. And we have a series called The Stupidest Things Ever Said. And that began basically because Kathy and I were trying to catch each other in saying things wrongly. So there's a negative sort of stream in all of this as well.
It was 50-50, I think, in terms of who said the most, actually. Yeah, I think we're neck and neck.
Awesome. No, I go through it with the same with my brother. Is it just you two in the family, or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They couldn't have handled more than just the two of us, I don't think.
And it's great having us at far distance so we can't argue as much.
Right.
That is the fun. I thought that was very funny. I mean, you've grown up in New Jersey, you moved to Cairo, back to Jersey, but now Ross is up here, and Kathy, you're in a whole nother world.
Yeah.
So that's awesome stuff. But between all the books you guys have written, you know, there's a ton, and I'm sure many more are going to come out. Do each of you have a favorite specifically between yourselves as a unit or individually, or you just love them all?
Kathy, I have my favorite is a book coming out called History of the World in Body Parts. And it takes little bits of people's bodies, like Cleopatra's nose, Lenin's skin, and through that body part, we try to like talk about how the world worked at that time.
I don't really have a favorite. I think that I like them all. I think I usually like the most recent one just because that's like in my head still. Or I like the one we just began. I should say that because that's always I like the starts. I'm a beginning person. I love the beginnings of stuff. So.
Very cool. That's awesome. And I want to highlight this book because it's the main one I've read of your guys, and my following has loved it. If someone were to just come across it, which many of them have, and they always ask me what book it is, and we touched upon this a little bit earlier, but is there a number one takeaway you could provide the audience of what you're hoping they could gain from this? Maybe something more in depth than just the words or the quotes, maybe an inspiration to, you know, further their life in some fashion?
Mine's going to be just 3 words. You can do it, or you can do it. 4 words. I can't even count.
You cannot count.
I think that was the key thing. When we started out, people told us, I was in the State Department and Kathy was in television. And people told us, you guys are crazy quitting your jobs to become writers. And I didn't think we were, and Kathy didn't think we were, and we did do it. And I think that, to me, really comes from the heart. I really think if you really love something and you really try and work hard, you can do it. And that, to me, is the takeaway from the book.
I also think because the subtitle of the book is Motivations for Dreamers and Doers. And I like that because I think a lot of people just say, oh, I'm a dreamer, and that's it. They stop there. But dreamers are doers. I mean, just the act of dreaming is something active. And this book, I think, gives you like the little chunks of inspiration that pushes you a little more, because you need a push. Let's be honest here. It's easy to sit at home, especially nowadays, you know, sit at home with a glass of wine, just like bumming your way on the computer. And I think this book makes you realize that the title, for me, says it all. It always seems impossible until it's done. Everything is impossible, but by saying it's impossible, you can do it. I don't know. That sounds sort of corny, but I really believe that.
No, I'm glad you said that, because that's a realization that I've come across, and it seems that everyone is learning this as well in the kind of self-development space, is that, everyone's used to say knowledge is power, but it's knowledge plus or times action is power. And that's right. That's exactly what the doer kind of aspect of it, because you can have all you want in your mind, in your head, but until you put it into action and, you go forth with it, then it really can be something. So I love that subheading too. That's right on the head. That's awesome. Was there any reason? Well, first off, this is a Nelson Mandela quote, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. I'm a big Nelson Mandela fan, and that's I'm glad I knew that before even having to read the book.
We're pretty impressed.
Was there any preference? And I'm thinking the rest of your books are similar, but this kind of pocket size deal, was that all you thought out, and maybe something you guys haven't seen other people do and you want to be different? What can you speak on that for us?
That seems to come mostly from the publisher, and we've been really big advocates of it. The idea is a book, sort of like the old-fashioned pocketbook. You can take this, stick it in your back pocket, stick it in something and you can carry it with you and get some portable inspiration. And if it's next to your bed, it's not going to spill onto the, knock over your water glass either.
Well, that was like Susan Sontag said. I think books are portable
Pieces of thought.
somethings of talk.
Or portable pieces of thought.
That was it. Yeah. So I think that works. We had done the ones that the publisher came up with the format initially. And as Ross said, we're advocates of it because I know when we see larger ones, I think it seems more digestible this way to me. It's not daunting. It's not like this big heavy duty referencey thing. This is more like it's sort of chatty. Do you know what I mean? It's like this little chatty ideas here ready for you to, pick at.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you could also share it so easily. I could just have someone next to me on a subway and be like, hey, buddy, like, just look at this quick sheet. And it's in big enough font that literally anyone could probably read, even if you need glasses of some sort. So that's a good point, too. I agree with that. Ross, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that the idea behind the book, though, is that the words might come right at you. And they're immediately accessible. They stick in your head. They're almost like poetry in a way, too. This sounds sort of weird because it's a quote. But the idea of the quote is to kind of permeate you, to get into your head. I mean, like old-fashioned monks or whatever would constantly chant one or two words, and that gets into the head and makes them feel what they're trying to do. And I think that's what the idea behind the book as well. You've got to believe in yourself, and the way to believe yourself is to keep repeating the idea that you do. And these quotes do that. They really motivate. I looked at the book. I hadn't looked at the book for a while, and I was actually like, well, I got motivated too.
Here you are.
Yeah.
It did its job. That's awesome. It's actually a read I do early in the morning. So I've been growing into learning more about Stoicism philosophy. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but
yeah, sure.
I've been reading a quick passage about that, and then I follow up with this, and then I meditate on both. So you're completely right. It is the words do pop off, and it really gets you to think. It's not just you read a normal sentence in some self-help book. It's like, wow, let me pass this on almost to the next person. Let me keep this going. So, very cool. I'm very curious to ask about your stance on you've had many books that have been published. Do you guys have any self-published books? What's your stance on the marketing in the process of actually selling the book with or without a publisher, and just any thoughts in that regard?
That's a really good question because we've been asked that a lot. I think we tried one self-published, but it was sort of like a half-hearted attempt, to be honest with you. Because we've been with traditional publishers from the beginning, and we've been lucky enough to have long-term relationships with them. I go back and forth. I think it's really difficult to do self-publishing well nowadays. I think too many people just sort of jump into it and don't think and don't. You've got to be your own. If you're your own publisher, you've got to think like a publisher. You're not just the writer then. And I think people have a tendency to do the book and just throw it out there and think, oh, whatever happens. But it's a whole process. And you don't have the backing. You're shouldering a lot of activity, whether it's like setting things up ahead of time and so on and so forth. I think it's great. I think it's making more people write, more people think, but I think it's tough. I think it's very difficult. But it's difficult to get regularly published these days too. So.
Yeah, it's really a tough world out there for almost anything really nowadays. I think that you really need a lot of persistence, and you do need a lot of luck as well. I mean, the one thing we keep going over and over with us is I think the key thing is you just have to keep doing it until it works. Right. And you have to try to learn from your mistakes. Self-publishing, though, I think suffers from one thing. I think a lot of people put stuff out without really working on both the product and, like Kathy said, the marketing. But I think it's a product thing too. I think you really need
you're
to,
right. Yeah.
You have to focus on what people need. The one thing that we never really thought about at the beginning was it is good to think, if you're doing self-publishing, I would imagine it's the same way. You need to think, who is your audience? Do you remember that,
Paul
Kathy?
said that. One of our editors, Paul, we'd given him a proposal that we loved. I don't even remember what it was. And he said, it's really, he said, this is really interesting, but who do you want to buy it? Who's this for? And we were like, us, we had no idea, pretty much.
But I mean, that could be good if you really believe in it, but you do have to have like that idea of the market.
Yeah, you can't just like write. Yeah, well, you can,
but it's tougher to sell. It is a good idea in business as well in marketing books to have an idea who your target audience is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's raised a couple good points. I've read a couple pieces where a lot of people have blog posts, and whichever blog post resonates, then they kind of shape a book around that because they've already tested it out to the
Mm-hmm.
market, and they've seen some people resonate with it. But then I also kind of side with the idea that, I mean, when I do write a book down the road, I'm probably going to be writing it for myself, you know, and I'm sure just by being a friendly individual, a lot of people have resonated with many of my interests. So I think that's still a good persuasive piece to it, that, you know, however old you are, whatever your walk of life is, you know, I'm sure there's millions of people that are doing the same thing and can relate to.
Wasn't it Alan Moore, Ross, who said something about everyone's got a story?
Yeah,
Didn't
I
he
think
say
so.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, you do have a story. I think that it's important to I think to be a writer to anything. I think some business guys have said that in the past too. You want to, in effect, help others, and you have to, by telling your story, how can I help others? How can I impact others? I think that's very important in business as well. You know, I mean, Ogilvy said that with products that he was selling years ago in the 1960s. How does this make you feel better? How does this help you understand something?
Well, it's the old needs
And I think,
benefit.
Yeah.
it's the motivation behind everything.
That's true. That's awesome stuff. Actually, a good question to piggyback off that is, a lot of people that view my content are within a 22 to like 35 kind of age demographic. I'm curious to ask you both, what do you think the number one skill right now that young professionals should probably look to master?
I'm going to go to the word thing. I think good communication, whether it's, I mean, in any form, I really do. I think that people have gotten a little sloppy. I'm going to sound like a really annoying teacher here now. People have gotten sloppy, but I think they have sort of. I think that you've got to focus. I think you've got to know how to present yourself in words and in action. I'd say communication across the board. I think that just good communication.
I agree with Kathy, because it's traditional to talk about STEM stuff, you know, science, technology, engineering, medicine. And though, you know, mathematical skills, quantitative skills are very important. But I do think communication is super important as well. I have a friend who's a chemical engineer, just graduated. And his biggest stumbling block he found was like actually going to interviews and talking to people. He was too like engineering focused and not enough, hey, what's going on outside the world and stuff. And I think he really applied himself and kind of learned how to interview and learned how to listen and talk, and he got a job too, so he did well.
Nice. That's great. That's actually super funny you just said that too, because right before this, I listened to a quick little video, and the man said that if it was up to engineers, no cars would ever come off the lot. They would just keep staying within the factory.
Yeah.
You need everybody. You need the business guy, you need the communication guy. And that's not a knock against engineers. Obviously, they are very intelligent individuals, but they don't quite have maybe that skill to build something and then pitch it to somebody and kind of get it out of the factory of some sort. So I thought that was funny. So the timer just went off. I have 3 quick questions to ask you guys, super quick. And the first one is, and this is both of you guys can answer this, is what's still unwritten for each of you?
Oh, so much. So much. We both still want to do our own novels. We still have that creative writing thing on the side. We're currently working on 2 more quote books, actually, that we really love. One of which was spawned by the whole COVID crisis. We've got history books we're doing. I want to write a ton more.
Yeah, I think the one fun thing about being a writer is it never gets really boring. There's always something to write, and I'm just like Kathy. And wherever I go, oh, that's a good idea for a book.
Yeah, totally. There's always an idea out there right there.
I mean, we're just talking now, and I was thinking, some advice on how to do it. You know, let's figure this out. Maybe we can do a book out of it.
Absolutely. Maybe something within the 20-year-olds demographic.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, you're giving us ideas here.
Awesome. Well, I'll be sure to promote it myself. I mean, this book it's seen all over my page. You guys are writing some awesome stuff. Another question I want to ask that I ask many people is there a number one book that you find yourself either rereading or always gifting to a friend, a colleague, or a family member?
Well, both of us are avid rereaders. I mean, I never understand people who read a book and then say, I read it and get rid of it. I mean, Ross's house is filled with books. Our house is filled with books. I mean, we both are rereaders. Right now, I'm rereading tons of P.G. Wodehouse because I wanted an escape. So I would say right now, I would say P.G. Wodehouse, but that wouldn't be the only thing.
Okay, very cool.
For me, that's sort of a tough one for me. I like reading almost everything. I really like languages. And I mean, I was like Kathy, I'm reading P.G. Wodehouse and I'm reading Agatha Christie. I'm reading Agatha Christie in French. And I really like, I think my favorite book of all time is The Odyssey by Homer. I just, particularly in the Fitzgerald translation, because it's like a quest and it just seems like it's sort of magical and you keep going on. And I've never seen a good Odyssey film. So I'd like to like, in my head, think of, gee, you know, how could you do it? I think The Odyssey, though, was really my favorite book.
Awesome. That's amazing stuff. Last question, and this is right towards the actual quotes and kind of a message in your head, but do each of you have a personal mantra that you revisit on a daily basis? Is there perhaps one, you know, set of words in one sentence that it's like, man, that really, when I'm down and out, or even when I'm on the highs of highs, it kind of grounds you and it makes you keep going, gets you excited?
Well, for me, it's not really an exciter. It's just I have a just calm down and shut up. It's mine because I talk a lot and I panic a lot. So it's just like, so just relax, don't say anything, figure it out, relax, it's fine.
That's good.
Oddly enough, a lot of times I get really daunted. I think, oh, I've got to get this whole book done. And one of my first jobs when I was in the State Department, the Foreign Service, was my boss said, like, just cut it into little pieces, step by step. You're not going to do the whole job. It's really banal, I guess, but you're going to do one little bit of it today. Focus only on that little bit. And to me, that gets me through when I go like, oh my God, I've got to do this, 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 and this. Okay, take it easy. You got one little thing to do. So I wake up, because a lot of times I wake up and I want to charge out and I think, oh, this, and this. No, just this thing right now.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much. This was amazing, Kathy and Ross. Super glad to have you guys on here. I know that there's going to be plenty more books to come, and I will be sure to stay in tune. And if there's anything you could pass over to my way that you want to get the word out, that'd be fantastic. Is there anywhere I could send people to read more about you guys? I know you have a website. Anywhere else?
I'd say just the website. Our publishers, each of our publishers has, you know, stuff about our books.
The website is the best, though, I think.
Yeah, which I have to update. Don't tell anybody.
Take it step by step.
Little by little.
Yeah.
Fantastic. This was great. Thank you guys again, and I hope to stay in touch, and I'm excited to see what comes out next out of both your guys' writings.
Okay, thanks a lot, Owen.
Thanks a million.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Bye.